Welcome to the SubSummit podcast. Real conversations with the operators scaling subscription, membership, and recurring revenue in today's commerce landscape.
Startup CPG, for anyone who's not familiar, we are the biggest community in the world in CPG. We have all of the early stage brands who we love to help with free resources, community, big opportunities. And Todd has been extremely helpful, especially around some of the fundraising events that we've been throwing recently, providing his perspective as somebody who goes very deep as a CFO and COO, helping emerging brands scale. So Todd, in case you're not familiar with the great Todd Hoffman, I wrote down some words about him. Builder,
terrified.
Operator, COO, CFO. He has worked with early stage brands, but also helped scale them up to 30 million in revenue, which honestly it is very hard for most brands to get to. You probably know about the success rates of stuff like that. Everybody knows him from his time at Brightland. Brightland really has been one of the standout brands, one of the few, I would say, in the food world to really figure out the e-com channel. And we're going to be talking about that a lot today. You know them as a premium pantry brand. The olive oil, I think everybody has seen on Instagram at some point. And Todd also spent a long time helping grow Chloe's Fruit as the COO, CFO there as well. So how did I do on the intro, Todd? Is there anything that I missed? Long walks on the beach?
Yeah, long walks on the beach. I think I owe you like $20-$50 after that beautiful introduction, so thank you. Yeah, it's been a wild journey the last 15 years in different aspects of consumer, right? So Chloe's started off as a retail brand. We had retail stores in New York City, trying to operate a retail footprint, and then moving to direct to grocery. It was not an e-com business. You just couldn't do frozen novelties profitably and in scale on e-com. And then moving over to Brightland, it was a D2C darling. And Brightland had this amazing, beautiful product. It really captured the eye, both from the visual appeal, but also the receiver. And that really is what drew a lot of the brand awareness to Brightland, is how it made you feel when you receive the product. And so everyone knows about the connection when you give something that's amazing, but receiving this amazing, beautiful, delicious product in this really wonderful packaging really had a major impact and really helped create this D2C evolution, I think, back in there, the last 5, 6, 7 years. And that evolution has really changed with the impact of the iOS systems and whatnot over the last couple of years.
So it's pretty interesting to me. I think there is a movement, especially in the kitchen, but also other rooms in the house, around beautifully branded products that you're proud to display. Absolutely. On the surfaces that actually accentuate and add to the aesthetic of the kitchen. You see that with brands like Caraway, with the really evolved Tupperware, but definitely I would put olive oil in that category as well, as it has evolved as something that, I don't know, I think was more commodity focused historically into some really premium brands that actually are almost like works of art that sit on your counter permanently. Can you just talk about what was the context of that with the growth of Brightland that made people really ready for a premium positioned olive oil?
Yeah, I think you gave a great example. Caraway has done, I don't know if you just saw, they launched a recycle bin and a trash can. And it's like the most beautiful trash can you've ever seen, right? It's the beautification of your pantry. It's a beautification of your kitchen. We looked at it, and when I was the COO there, we looked at the business as, when you're hosting an event, you're bringing out your china, you're bringing out your best things. You want to show people how you're doing things, and then people leave and you put them away. But how do you have it so you also leave it out as part of your day-to-day? And I think that's where the intersection that Brightland had of a commoditized product, olive oil, right? Everyone has olive oil in their pantry, but why shouldn't you be so proud of it that you leave it on your counter? It makes you feel good about yourself. And so we would always say you might have a premium olive oil that you would leave on your counter for when your guests came over, but then you'd put it away and you'd cook with your lower quality stuff. There's no need to do that. The health benefits, the value you're creating from that should make you feel good when you're sharing it with other people at an event, at a hosted event, if you're going to a party. And so it became this amazing gifted product, right? You felt so good about giving it to someone because they could leave it out. And one of the benefits of olive oil was you didn't use it in one sitting, right? If I came and brought you a bottle of wine at my house, that bottle of wine was gone by the end of the night. But the bottle of olive oil could have sat there for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month. And you remembered that gift because I'd say, oh, Daniel gave that to me. This is a great gift. Oh, the guys from Startup CPG, they gifted this to me for the holidays. It was such an amazing gift. I used it all the time. And so we looked at it, if you kind of bringing it back to like the retention question of like, how does D2C continue to evolve? Retention for us also looked at, if I gave you a gift, did you then gift it to someone else afterwards? And so it was a little different play on the retention model, because of that, that's very hard to track. But we saw that flywheel as people gave that gift, they received the gift, they then gave the gift as well. And we would see that in feedback loops from our customer base.
Yeah, the gifting market is just such an interesting one. I feel like when you're looking to buy somebody that a gift, it really is hard to find something that is just going to be so universally needed and liked, like 100%. This kind of a product.
100%. And taste profiles change, consumer behaviors change. I mean, going back to wine, the wine industry has had a tough go at it. We've all seen what's happening in the alcohol industry. And you're seeing consumption of these better for you products as gifted alternatives become really, really, really nice. But it had to match, right? The quality had to match the occasion. And so if we didn't have what I consider to be the absolute best quality olive oil out there, we could have had a beautiful bottle, which we did, but it had to have amazing taste profile, health benefits, and all that. Not just the emotional connection to, oh, it looks beautiful, it makes me feel good, but it actually does something good for me as well. If you're talking about food, it has to have both those things. We've all seen brands that it might have a celebrity backing and has a lot of hype, and you try it and you go, oh, that didn't deliver on what I was promised. And it might be the taste, it might be how it made you feel. But if it doesn't land on all those pieces, you've lost your customer and you've lost your way about what you're doing.
Yes. And often in those instances, you could get someone to try it once. I feel like, especially with big celebrity backing, like, yeah, I want to try that. But if it's not good, the repeat purchase rate is terrible. You'll have high sales immediately and then just crashes. Absolutely. You said two things that were especially interesting to me just then. One was as just thinking about like, okay, so it is very premium priced, and then actually usually what you want are the heavy users. Great. Who are they? We're going to sell to them. But actually, if they are such heavy users, then it also creates that challenge where it's like, if they're using olive oil so much, it is tough to get them something that's super premium when there are a lot of other options out there. So like, yeah, we'll talk about in a little bit what your core consumer then really would be, who you're actually going after for e-com to target and how it relates to the gifting market. And then the second thing I wrote down was Caraway trash can, because I just re-upped on trash cans from
go take a look.
Simple Human or whatever, which I think have been the standard, but I'm like, wait, no,
no,
is
you
there
gotta
a better
go check
one?
it out. I mean, they by the way, talk about some good LinkedIn ads. Go check out their LinkedIn ads. They did a good. Again, it was about the messaging, right? It's just a trash can, but it was beautiful. It made your home more beautiful. Maybe we'll both get maybe Caraway will send us some free garbage cans out.
I don't want to get carried away on Caraway, but I really did write that down. And also, it just reminded me a little bit of Method soap, because I feel like I don't know everything that was out there and predated it or whatever, but it did feel like Method especially really transformed the bathroom in this way, where they made, for me, the first soap that you really were excited to display up there, not just Dial, whatever, utility soap, bars, because the Method form factor was beautiful. And even the experience of using it was, I think, pretty new in that sense for people, and just had that same effect. So
I totally agree with you. And I think it goes back to that emotional connection, right? So product is utilitarian, right? Consumer products oftentimes are utilitarian. A trash can is utilitarian. Olive oil can be utilitarian. It's for cooking. It's for dressing. It's for consumption. Vitamins, utilitarian. But do you have an emotional connection to what you're doing? Does it make you feel differently? And I promise you, I mean, I remember when I first joined Brightland, I gave the gift of Brightland to my mom, and seeing her eyes light up. And I was like, wow, my mom is 77 years old, 76 years old. And seeing her have an emotional connection to something in the same way that, my wife would see, and they're using for different purposes, but they both had a really emotional connection to a very utilitarian product. And I think that's really what helps separate. So if there's that perfect intersection of utilitarian, emotional connection, price point, all need to meet and have an expectation to the consumer where they go, I have that connection, I'm getting value from this, and it tastes good. And if you hit those 3 points, you probably are on an equation for success.
I totally agree. It's so interesting to think through. So, can you just tell me a little bit more about why digitally native? Why D2C first? Because probably a lot of people here at this conference, which is more e-com focused, are more familiar with digitally native brands. My experience is actually much more on the retail focus, because in food and beverage, I think something like 90% of the volume still happens through brick and mortar, like retail, even if it gets delivered coming from the stores. Mm-hmm. And it's actually quite uncommon and impressive if a brand can make e-commerce in general work in food and beverage. So let me just ask a quick crowd question here. Of the people in the audience, how many of you actually buy a food or beverage product on subscription today? Okay, that is actually a pretty typical number when I asked this. So that to me looked like about 15% of people. And how many of you have a different kind of product on subscription, an e-commerce one? Okay, so that is most of the hands, right? I definitely do. I have stuff on subscription, but just for food and beverage, it's not a behavior that we are really used to. We're used to, more like grocery store, consolidated model. We go to one place and get all of it. Not as much individual brand websites where we were going to order consistently from them over time, and that is our source. I think a lot of us, probably everybody here, has ordered a food or beverage product maybe once from the brand website. It's a great way to try something, but actually making the leap to now you order from me consistently is a huge thing. And there are only a few brands, I would say, that have really figured out how to have this stickiness to get people to keep coming back then and buying from there, which is why, most brands will eventually really penetrate retail very heavily so that they have the availability in the places that consumers are looking. So given all of that context, and also margins are tough. CFO Todd thinks about that a lot, right? So food is heavy, beverage is heavy, which also makes, not only do people not have that habit, but when they do, you have to pay a lot to acquire them, and then it costs you a lot to ship it to them, and they churn a lot. So given all of those difficulties, Brightland was still successful, one of the few brands to do this. Why did you think that you could be? And then we'll talk about later a little bit, how did you make it successful? But let's start there. Why digitally native?
Yeah. I think the answer really revolves around storytelling. In a grocery store, it's very hard to tell a story. I think the average consumer, you have 3 seconds to get their attention, tell the story, explain what you're trying to do, and maybe give them some nutritional information about what that product is doing. When someone's going to your website, you can tell a narrative, a founder story. For Brightland, it was the farmer story. The details behind where the olives are coming from, how we're sourcing it, how the products are being milled, and what the quality story behind that, why it's going to make you feel better, why it's going to taste better than everything else out there. You have a different opportunity in that environment to tell a story that you don't have when you're walking through a grocery store. We've all been to the grocery store. I have 2 kids. I remember, pushing them in a stroller in New York City down a grocery store aisle, and they're screaming and yelling and they're pointing at stuff. And it's just like, get me out of here as fast as possible. I just need to get the 3 products I need to get for dinner tonight, which is the convenience factor, right? Which is why a lot of people don't have a pasta box on subscription. I'm just going to go to the store because I'm making that tonight. I don't necessarily need to have 12 boxes of pasta shipped to my house every day to plan for my dinner for the next couple of weeks.
That's COO Todd talking about having, exactly, low inventory carrying costs in his house.
Exactly.
Not too much pasta sitting on the shelf. I like it.
But again, going back to why Brightland specifically worked, it was a narrative. We were trying to tell a story. It was really about that emotional connection. It was a utilitarian product, right? It's the olive oil. So how do we get that conversation? How do we make someone feel and want them to feel differently about this product? It was a beautiful product, both inside and out. And so again, that emotional connection, the story you can tell, and then delivering on that. I don't know if anyone's ordered Brightland before, but the unboxing experience is part of the journey. If I'm at a grocery store, I don't control that journey. The person who's putting it on the shelf controls the journey. They might put the box up backwards or upside down or sideways, or it's not in the right slot. And so I can't control that journey. And when it's brought home to you, I can't control that part of the journey. But in D2C, you can control that journey. You can control the narrative. I know the box was delivered at your home. I can send you a message saying, you just received this. Let me give you a recipe about how you can use this. Or did you just receive this as a gift? Let's talk about all the benefits of olive oil and what you can do with it. And here's a great idea for how you can host something now with that gift. And so the digitally native aspect of a product like Brightland's was really powerful. Ultimately, like you said, though, we led into grocery with other products that were more day-to-day usage that solved a different problem and solved a different challenge that consumers were having. And I think going back to what you said about why it's so challenging for consumer brands is in food specifically is, what are you trying to solve for? A lot of people are trying to solve for their dinner tonight, their lunch today, or their lunch tomorrow. We're not oftentimes planning out our meals 3 weeks in advance. And so understanding what that might be. So I think a lot of the D2C food businesses that do win on subscription on D2C are ones where it's continuous consumption, where you're really solving a problem. I'll give you a great example. I have a dog. I hate having to go to the store and buy a 50-pound bag of dog food. It's much easier for me to go online, click a button, and have that 50-pound dog bag delivered to my front door, because my dog eats the same amount of food every day. I know how long it's going to take for him to go through that bag, and I just don't want to drive to a retail, a brick and mortar location to pick up one item that I'm going to go there and get one thing once every month and bring it home. So it saves me time. It saves me to energy. It saves me the hassle. And so I'm solving a food problem, but I'm solving a personal problem too. It makes my life easier.
That's so interesting. There are only 2 products I think that I have on subscription right now. One of them is my dog food, mine isn't even as heavy as that, but just like, why in the world am I going to go out and buy that? I know I need it. You never switch your dog food. Just
toilet paper. I know I go through that. I've got, there's 5 people in my house. We go through toilet paper. I think everyone probably goes through that. But having to load up my car, but having that just come to my house and be like, okay, well, if I have a couple extra rolls, I know I'm going to go through that. So that value chain of, am I solving a real problem? And that problem might be taste, it might be availability, right? I don't have that at my local grocery store. I'm in an area where that CPG brand doesn't offer it in a local grocery store. Or I have, again, that emotional connection to something that's not available. Or again, it's something I'm using on such a regular basis, frequently. And the brand has identified what that frequency is, right? So if my 50-pound dog bag was coming every 2 weeks, I wouldn't have a subscription. I'd just go online once a month and order it. But they know how long it's going to take me to go through that, and they've cadenced it accordingly. So I don't end up having 3 bags of dog food sitting in my garage.
The other one I have on subscription is protein powder. I order it from Momentous, which I've been into. And I think I do it for a couple of reasons. One, because it's not really available that way off Amazon. So I know I have to get it off their website, even though I don't love having to go order things off websites. Like, I'm a busy guy. But yeah, it has reached that level for me where it's so sticky for me, and I have the habit and I have it every day, that yes, it makes sense to have it on subscription. But I feel like a thing that early brands don't understand is just how hard it is to create that habit with consumers. So many brands that I'm talking to who are launching e-com or doing retail also, but they're just like, and then we'll do subscriptions and everyone's going to order this off the website, and then we'll get a lot of them to have it on subscription. And then I asked them that same question that I asked all of you. Okay, in your life though, how many products do you have on subscription that are food and beverage? They're like, well, none. I'm like, so this is going to be hard. And it's possible, but I think it really takes a product that is going to be so ingrained in people's lives. And even like if you have a lot of flavors, I think actually that can actually prevent some people hitting subscription, because if they do like to switch things up, then they might be like, well, I don't know if I'm going to want chocolate again next month, so maybe I'll just keep ordering. And you're probably happy to have the orders, but that can be a little disruptive to a flat
Absolutely.
subscription, right?
Well, I think that's really what drives some of the retention, right? Is the availability to make modifications. There's a brand that I subscribe to. I'm a runner. And so I know on my long runs, I'm going to go through, I need electrolytes. So Element is this great D2C native hydration and electrolyte brand. But I know when I go on my runs, I'm going to go through X number of packets. And so I can plan out and I can swap out different versions of a flavor, or it's mostly flavor driven. But because I know the cadence of how much I'm using, and again, it goes back to the consumption model, right? I don't necessarily eat pasta every single day, but I know I run 4 days a week. And when I run, I take my hydration. And so I'm going to go through this on a very regular basis, on a regular cadence. It does good for my body. And I don't want to switch, because I know when I run and I drink this product, it makes me feel good. And it feels like I am performing better because of that. Protein powder, I think people feel the same way. I drink my protein powder in the morning with my smoothie. I know the taste profile. So sure, this other brand might be on sale, but I know my recipe for my smoothie. I make the same smoothie every day or every week. And so by doing this, I know what I'm getting. I know what I'm putting in my body. And for dinners, people want variety.
Yeah. Supplement category, definitely easier because it becomes a regiment so quickly,
Right.
and you take the consistent amount so you can predict when you're going to need it, or they'll tell you.
Absolutely.
And even some of the like coffee category, I think can be like that, because we all just have that. If you're a coffee drinker, you probably have a habit around it,
Yes.
for better or worse. And so you know how much how many days a week you have it, or how many times per day, and how much you need to make that. I'm just curious for the people in the audience, if you guys have any examples of products you have on subscription, especially in food or beverage. I'd love to hear it for the very few of you who actually raised your hands. So if you have an example of one, like he mentioned Element that he has for his runs, please let me know. I would love to share some examples here. So if you have one, you can raise your hand or just shout it out. But coffee, okay, makes sense. Ground, like beans, or is it like mud water or something? Ground coffee, okay. And why do you order it on subscription instead of getting it locally at a store or whatever? Because they're based in Long Beach, and you just love that coffee, and you gotta have it. Yes. Don't mess with coffee drinkers and their favorite coffee. Don't get in between them.
But it goes back, right? He has a connection to that. And maybe you were at a store and you tried that coffee and you were like, this is amazing. Or you met the founder.
Yeah, a demo, who knows?
I was over listening to a talk over here, and there was a gentleman talking, and he had this great Australian accent. Whatever he said sounded good because it was Australian. But he was talking about that founder story and showing the founder's face and how that really creates a connection. People understand when they see a founder, why they created this brand, what the product means to them. And then they create that connection, right? So maybe you met the founder of that coffee brand. Maybe you had a great meeting right there, and you're like, wow, this coffee was amazing. And I think coffee is one of these also interesting things, right? I go for my run, I want a different flavor. Maybe it's chocolate when I come back from my run, and strawberry when I'm on the run. So different flavor profiles. Coffee is the same, right? People can get different varieties from different parts of the world, and to have someone curate and send you every month a different variety of that, I think is really special, right? You can experience different parts of that ecosystem by doing it that way.
I totally agree with you. I also really enjoy that we're talking about all of this while the Starbucks woman is here in the second row having a good time. No offense. I go to Starbucks a lot, actually. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about how you actually grow the brand then. We talked about, what went into it. I know there is so much also about the quality of the product. So hot take, I didn't ask you this before, but I would like to know, and the answer cannot be both. If you have to prioritize is for this kind of a brand that's going to be digitally native, brand or product, which is it going to be? And again, can't say both. Just you have to rank one versus the other. For digitally native, trying to grow something in food.
Product. I mean, I think product is so important. But brand might get your attention, right? Brand, D2C, you have this visual appeal, right? Video content. That might get you one subscriber once, and then they're going to cancel. Product to me is king. And we talked about this earlier. We've seen a lot of the celebrity-backed brands where they come out and there's this amazing demand and then crash because the product just isn't there. So yes, it has to have both. You have to have a great brand. You have to have something. You have to be able to say something that means something. If you're just saying, I have this, goodbye, you probably aren't going to get anyone to try your product. So you have to have a story to tell that really connects with why you're trying to do it. In D2C, people spend time, right? Again, go back to the digitally native world versus the grocery world. How many times we sit in a grocery store and just read the story behind the back of the box? We do here and there. But when you're on a website or you see an ad, you stop. It's that thumb stopping part of the scroll that you go, I want to look at this more. I want to understand this. I'm going to now go to their website. I'm going to read some of the testimonials. I'm going to look more about what this is. And then the meta machine starts feeding you all the different things so you learn more about it, but you're learning more about it because you're interested in that context. But if it doesn't taste good, how do I find a way to get that out of my Instagram feed now? Because I tried it and it wasn't very good. And so it is both, unfortunately, but product.
It's a good answer.
You have to lead with product, I think.
Definitely a COO answer, but I know you
with
go
really
a lot
good
broader
margins,
than that.
really 70% gross.
Yeah, at least.
Yeah.
Okay, so then now let's talk a little bit about the actual growth of it, because I know, everybody at a startup is involved across the business, and so I know you know a lot about how you actually grew the sales of it as well. But yeah, how do you actually then set about growing a digitally native brand like that? Because probably everybody here knows about Brightland and has seen it in a way that I think you wouldn't say that about every e-com product out there, but you guys definitely did something really effective so that everybody knew about it. How do you grow stuff like that? Like, I know you mentioned the e-commerce equation, people who were talking a little bit earlier about founder stories, but was it the content or performance marketing that worked really well? What are the ways that you really got people to come in and start purchasing?
I think that it goes back to, were we solving something? People really wanted to feel good about what this product did for them. Was it the taste? Maybe. But when you gave something, when you received this beautiful bottle, you're like, wow, this is amazing. And so early on, even throughout the journey when I was there, the third-party validation was so important. Having other people tell your story for you and being able to see that happen live is magical, right? When you see someone receive that gift, and we always try to capture that content of how do you sort of be there when someone's opening up the box on Christmas morning or on Mother's Day, how do you get in someone's room when they give their mom that gift? But you started to see that, and we had we had a ton of word of mouth that you can't replicate. And that goes back again to emotional connection and great product. If you have those two things, people want to talk about it. People love sharing. When people find something they love, it's amazing how much they want to share about it. I think that's really important, right?
Yeah, because you mentioned it before, talking about giving it as a gift to your mom. My mom, it just immediately made me think about what my mom's expression would look like if I gave her that gift. She would love it.
Love it.
She would be so excited. Yeah. And my mom is not easy to please on gifts. I've definitely missed a bunch of times, and when you do, yeah. But I know this wouldn't miss. And it just made me, that kind of content and angle seems really evocative. I feel like probably everybody here listening can imagine that, gifting something that feels so special and nice and thoughtful, that probably a lot of our moms have a connection to that, and cooking for the family, stuff like that. And she would probably it would be so nice that she wouldn't want to use it. She would just want to have it on the counter always.
Yeah. Well, but then it comes to the growth story, right? How do you then take that and grow the business outside of that? And we can liken that back to my days at Chloe's. At Chloe's, we created a frozen novelty made of 3 ingredients, just fruit water and cane sugar. How did we wanted to find a way to expand that consumer base, the usage times, the people that were consuming it. And so we launched smaller popsicles for little kids. We had more decadent flavors for adults. And so looking and seeing what was the consumer wanting, when were they consuming your product, and how are they consuming your product was really important. So we realized that we had a big opportunity in offices. People loved having a treat at an office. So at Chloe's, we were able to transition this big corporate office business because people loved coming into their office, grabbing a popsicle in the middle of summer while they were sitting at their desk and eating it. It was a great little business for us, but it fed the marketing machine when they went to the grocery store and they saw it and they're like, oh, they also have them for kids. My kid would love this product. So we had a great partnership with Spider-Man and Avengers. So mom and dad felt great about giving their kid this great product that has just natural ingredients, real fruit. And they were like, oh, I had this at work. I tried this. It was really good. So different day parts, different mentalities, different times of day that you can be trying these products. And at Brightland, it was coming out of just a lot of gifting occasions. We had a lot of consumers who were consuming it on a regular basis as well, but then really diving deep on the everyday consumption.
Okay, so coming back a little bit to the question about growth, like, okay, the CFO in you,
yeah.
What are you looking at when you're like, okay, so we have this great angle, this great content, but obviously you need to put money behind a lot of this stuff. What e-com growth levers are you most likely to say yes to? What do you need to see for it to feel like a really good investment for you, recognizing short-term and long-term kind of investments that you have to make?
I think one of the biggest challenges is understanding what the channel is doing for you, right? So Amazon versus your own website versus a B2B site. Is it retention? Is it awareness? Is it conversion? What is that channel specifically trying to do for you? And measuring against it, right? So if you have a channel that's purely for retention, but you're spending a ton on acquisition, is that working for you? Is it playing in the right way you're trying to make it play for? Different channels can and should have different purposes, and making sure you're measuring against them. Putting the CFO hat on it, I'm looking purely at contribution margin. I really want to understand what my contribution margin is across the board on all my products on a blended basis. But I also know that I might need to invest more in an Amazon channel if I'm trying to get awareness or retention there, versus on my own channel where it might be a little bit different.
So can you explain that a little bit more to some of the people who have less experience in e-com like myself? What typically would channels serve as different roles? What would be common? Like, which channels would you look at more for trial, which for retention? Or can you just give us an example?
I think it really depends on the product. I think different products tend and trend different ways on different platforms. We all know we go to Amazon, and that's acquisition, right? You're going to Amazon, you're just like, I'm going to click on it, I'm going to get it, I want to get it tomorrow. And on my website, I'm going to read more. I'm going to get more information. So there's less competitive content on my website than on Amazon. Amazon, I'm going to see 5 different alternatives. And so what is the purpose? The ad channel that I'm going to feed onto Amazon is going to look very different than the ad that I might be pushing to my website. My website might have more information or drive more about awareness, about what I'm trying to solve for, what I'm trying to explain, and really trying to create more of a connection. Right, so more founder story on there. I think this is a lot of the problem that CFOs battle with CMOs on. Of, hey, what is this channel doing? What's the purpose of this? How am I seeing a return on this investment? The number of CFOs that I talk to where it's, I'm going in this direction, my CMO is going in that direction, and the ops team is in a totally different direction, makes it very challenging. And that's part of the scale up part of the business, which I think people really underestimate of how challenging that can be as you're scaling up.
What you're saying makes a lot of sense to me, but I actually haven't really heard it a lot before. Maybe it's because I'm not so deep in e-com, but do you think that is pretty common that most CFOs at the e-com businesses understand that it's not just like, okay, I'm the marketer and I'm coming to the CFO like, hey, I want to do this. Is that going to work? Are most of them getting that question from CFOs typically?
100%. Yeah.
Always like, okay, but what is that doing?
Disciplined ones.
Yeah.
Right, disciplined ones. And I think there's, different versions of how much money you have in your wallet that you can spend to try things, where you're going to say, hey, I'm going to put $50,000 behind this or $100,000 behind this. Let's just see what happens. Versus being a bootstrap business and saying, I have to have that dollar investment return $3. I have to. So I can't take a similar risk. So I have to be more purposeful on what this channel can do or should do versus having the ability to say, maybe it can be retention and acquisition. Let's try both. It's a challenging part of the operating infrastructure of a business.
I guess, I just hear it more about like, oh, it's top of funnel or it's bottom, that kind of stuff. But I don't know. I really like the way you're explaining it. It makes a lot of sense to me. So just to dig into unit economics a little bit more. And again, putting myself in the shoes of the marketer who has an idea and has to come to the CFO, as it often happens, for approval for this kind of stuff. Can you just tell me a little bit about how do these things change over time? So we know about customer acquisition cost, and over time, a lot of things have changed in the industry that could make that more expensive, right? Because of the changes around digital marketing and how you can target customers. And also, we know that as you scale, those things can get tighter also. It can become more expensive because you've got the low-hanging fruit already that was out there. Can you just talk about unit economics? So your customer acquisition, your retention margins, how does that stuff change as you start scaling the business in a serious way?
Yeah, it also changes as Meta changes their algorithm and iOS changes what you can or can't target. So I think the rules of the game from 2020, 2021 shifted dramatically in 2022, 2023, and even more so today. A lot of brands that I talk to, the customer acquisition cost continues to go up. Like as you're building a brand from zero, and you're able to tell a story that resonates quickly with that proverbial low-hanging fruit, you start to see, oh wow, I can really acquire these customers, but those are your top 1% customers. Those are your hardcore, your early believers. Getting that next round of consumers in the door on a regular trial basis gets more expensive. And that happens D2C, and it happens in grocery, and we've all seen it, right? I go into Whole Foods and I'm like, wow, I've resonated with this consumer base, and I now move on to my next retailer and try and expand out. I'm paying slotting fees, I'm paying ad fees, I'm paying OI fees. Now I'm having a big digital native ads that are going to promote people when they go into my grocery store, and GPS enabled. So I know when they go into that store, I'm going to get an ad for my particular product, or put a shelf talker up there. Trying to get that awareness out there gets more and more expensive as you scale. Again, outside of your top tier customers in D2C, and outside of your top tier consumers in a retail shop. And that equation gets more complex and more expensive as that base expands. And so you try and, it's that proverbial entrepreneur's dilemma. Oh, when I get bigger, I'm going to have better margins because I'm going to have better scale, but my marketing budget might also be adjusting in a different way as well. So those are two conversations that have to happen at the same time.
When you are the CFO, because this question of also growth versus profit, because as you grow, then also you get scale, especially on the ops side, and things can become cheaper, but you really do want to make good contribution margin decisions all the time. How do you balance those, especially knowing that you have the rest of the executive leadership team and a board often to be responsible to defend those kind of things that you're approving and decisions you're making?
Founders have conviction. I will get there, right? I will be in 10,000 stores. I will have 2 units turned of my product, and 1 is the average. I'm going to be 2x the mean. So founders have conviction. That's what makes founders different. And but there's a difference between having conviction to doing it and what's actually possible. To say, hey, I have a tolling fee of $1. But man, when I scale to this many units, I'm going to get down to 50 cents. There's the hope and the dream, and then there's a reality. And I think that's the difference of when you've been doing it for a bit of time and you've seen what actually is possible with scale, to be able to say, oh, I can get to 50 cents. You can't. You might get to 80 cents on that tolling, because that is really what the larger scale opportunities look like. And so I think smaller companies as they scale have, I think, some, I don't say pipe dreams about what is possible from a scale perspective, but yes, a lot of things do come down with scale, especially in co-manufacturing. But I wouldn't say it goes from like 100 down to 1. It drops, and there are big chunks that drop off of it. But really trying to put context behind that. And I think that goes back to, as you're building your brand, being friendly with other brands, because you can get really good context in that. At Chloe's, we were really good friends with all the other popsicle manufacturers. I knew all of them by name. We were friendly. And that friendly camaraderie about building a business with people who are building businesses like yours made the journey a lot easier. And you could see it, and you can peek behind corners. I think that's a really important part, is peek around the corner of seeing what's next. And a lot of operators, a lot of COOs have to be able to do that. Founders have to be able to blind some of that out and say, no, we can crash through that wall. And COOs really need to be able to peek around that corner.
It makes a lot of sense. I wonder if there's that same camaraderie in the olive oil business. From what I've seen, it's very competitive. So I bet it's less friendly than the popsicle business.
There's in all businesses, right? I think there's ways to make it happen. Look, as a small, you know this from Startup CPG, right? We used to joke around. We competed against Unilever.
Yeah.
It's really hard when we used to joke around that our marketing budget was smaller than the mayonnaise fund that Unilever had, that they would like just slosh over to the popsicle fund when they needed more money because they just had extra in the mayonnaise fund. We just couldn't compete. And so the smaller brands, if we were sort of, I don't say work together, but if we sort of were able to talk about our challenges in a way, not of saying, hey, what's your recipe? Who's your consultant that's helping you develop this? Or where are you manufacturing that? And what's your technology for this? But are you working with great providers? Are there good tools that you've learned? Are there good tricks of the trade? Can you introduce me to a buyer that could help me with this? And having that level of partnership with your competitive friends, I think goes a long way. And I think it's really important.
I love it. Okay. So I want to ask you about some of the best and worst decisions that you have made, or things that you have approved to spend out there. And, obviously, Todd is an amazing guy. He's not perfect. None of us are perfect. There have been some things that we all wish we had that one back, or that we wish we had tripled down on, or things that went incredibly well that you wouldn't have expected. So I would love to know, on especially e-com investments, what were some that was the smartest thing we ever did, was really doubling down in that area, or an investment that we made, or a team member that we needed to get, or a resource that we could really propel our e-com growth. And then, of course, we'll come to the one we wish we had back. But let's start on the good foot.
Yeah, I think the biggest impact that I'm super proud of, especially at Brightland, was when we brought in people who are really experts in scaling operations. And you really can pull a lot of costs out of an operation. So how does your 3PL work with you? Especially on D2C shipping. We were able to cut a significant amount of our costs by just making a very small change into our box. Now, the consumer didn't mind. They'd actually probably wouldn't even notice. We cut 1/4 of an inch off that box. By doing that, the dimensional weight shifted, and we were able to go to a different a rate card adjustment based on that, but to no impact to the consumer. And so I always looked at it as saying, if I can make an impact to the operations of the organization that don't impact on a negative way the consumer, that's a win. And so we were able to create really good operational infrastructure changes. I'll give you some other examples. Putting inventory in certain places to get it to the consumer faster. If I'm ordering a gift, if you're like me, you ordered it the day before Mother's Day, and I have to have it there that day because Mother's Day is not going to wait. And so by moving inventory around and being really smart about where we put inventory based on who our consumers were, where they were located, and the shipping partners that we partnered with, I can get it to you faster versus having it all in New York. It takes a long time to get to California, or vice versa. So if I had warehouses in the right places near where my consumers were, I was able to save money. I was able to be more efficient. I was able to get more orders because people were like, wow, I ordered this, it showed up exactly when I needed it for the occasion I wanted it for. Now that might be a little bit different if you're, again, a hydration company and I just have my stockpile that I know I'm going to go through. I don't necessarily need it that day, right? I have a marathon coming up. I've planned for that. Or I'm going to go to my expo and I'm going to get it there.
Yeah, that's great. So I really like that example because I think one is about cost savings, which are so important. I mean, these are probably dollars per box that you can save in aggregate, which that's everything to be able to keep growing. Yeah. And then the other one, which is really a sales support, because I'm that way. If I'm looking to buy my mom a Mother's Day gift and if there's even a question about whether it's going to get there on time, no way, I'll buy something else.
It's amazing. We all get the ad for Christmas gifts, in November. And I'm like, I'll wait.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I forgot. I got to get this tomorrow. We all have that delay mentality. I think Amazon has helped us figure out that we can delay until tomorrow.
So as we wrap up here, I would just love to ask one more question to finish on. the retail crossover. You mentioned
Yeah.
you did eventually scale into retail. I think it can be really powerful. And for a lot of D2C brands and eventuality, if they're really successful in e-com, they're going to want that physical footprint as well. How do you decide when to do it? Any tips for brands about when and how?
I think there's that internal feeling of it's the right time, right? Your consumers, you have to be where your consumers are shopping. You have to be where they are and be present where they are. And so D2C is this great environment where you can have this really intimate conversation with them. And as that scales, as your consumers understand who you are, the functional benefit of what you're doing, the emotional connection is already there. You've already gained that trust. I need to be where they actually are, right? And so food products, we all go to grocery stores. Grocery is really expensive, and it's very hard to control the narrative. You are in a sea of other brands competing for that same eyeball, competing for that same dollar. And so once you have that connection, once you have a brand that really drives purpose, it really has a way. I'll spend an extra $1 on this, or I really am I'm going to go there for that. Most of us don't go to a different grocery store just to get a single product. If I say, oh, my Chobani coffee creamer is only sold at this store, but man, this one's a lot closer, I might try Starbucks' coffee creamer that time because they sell it at my local store too. And I'm not going to get the Chobani one because it's just not there. But I can go on my website and buy it. And so convenience is a really important thing, but being where your customer is shopping once you have that connection is really important. Because I think ultimately consumers will seek you out.
Yeah, you did the hard work to actually convince them that they like your product.
Yeah.
And now if you don't make it available where they're shopping, then all of that can be wasted.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's very expensive now, especially now with all the changes to the iOS systems and whatnot and ad targeting. It's very expensive to get your product in front of the consumer. People don't realize how expensive it is to get your product in front of the consumer at a grocery store too. It's very expensive. And so I think a big piece of advice I give a lot of brands is make sure you're ready to spend, because it takes money it takes money in grocery to really get your brand out there and drive velocity.
All right, heard from a CFO.
Yeah,
you're going to have to spend a lot of money.
You're going to have to spend a lot of money.
All right. Cool. Well, Todd, I really want to thank you.
Yeah,
I really
absolutely.
appreciate your time and coming here.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for coming and enjoying. Thank you. Yes, give it
Thank
up.
you.
All right. Todd Hoffman, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the SubSummit podcast. If you want to be in the room with the operators building the next era of subscription and commerce, head to subsummit.com and grab your pass now. Make sure to follow the SubSummit podcast so you don't miss upcoming interviews with the founders, brands, and partners shaping the industry. We'll see you at the crossroads.